Chapter 82. In time, Li Cherie became intimate with the most intimate objects in her environment, including that inanimate object that controls the reproductive cycles of all living creatures. That inanimate object that choreographs the tides. That inanimate object that influences sanity. That inanimate object to which J. Isaacs was referring to when he wrote, "The history of poetry in all ages is the attempt to find new images for the moon." The moon is the empress of the objects, and as a practitioner of luniception, Li Cherie was in its league. There was one object in her domain, however, which she pointedly ignored, even though that object was particularly enlivened by the moonshine. It was her engagement ring. More than likely, she was afraid of what the ring signified. She had fully accepted Abin Fizzle as her lover, yet to contemplate their marriage made her shiver and sweat. Whenever she tried to imagine herself his lifelong bride, she grew immediately morose and set to thinking about the pyramid instead. Even though the day of the pyramid's completion and her wedding day were the same. In Fizzle's country, it was taboo for an engaged couple to appear together in public, so except for the slippery Wednesday evenings with slishy Saturday nights, she rarely saw him. Abin procured materials for pyramid construction and organized the labor force. At this, he was so efficient that the project, which should have taken a minimum of 2 years, looked as if it would be done in 20 months. The delay in the delivery of limestone facing notwithstanding. But Abin seldom appeared at the building site. An inveterate nightclubber, he frequently flew to Rome or Mykonos for a single evening's revelry, only to sleep away the mornings and devote afternoons to strenuous gymnastic sessions and meals of grapefruit and raw garlic. He had leased a satellite to relay telecasts of every game played by the American professional basketball team whose franchise he owned, and presumably sports biz consumed a fairly large portion of his attention. The week that Li Cherie arrived in his country, she was honored with a reception at the family palace where she had met the patriarch, Ihaj Fizzle, one of the most financially powerful men alive. She also was introduced to Abin's 2 brothers. The mother made a brief appearance. The sisters weren't seen at all. When Li Cherie asked about the women, Abin shrugged. "It is unimportant," he said. Li Cherie got the impression that females counted for little in the land of the Fizzles, and that doubtlessly was one reason she looked at the diamond ring with no more enthusiasm than most people looked at cigarette packages. Looked, but chose not to see. "What is this golden ball of which you have the curiosity?" asked Abin the night the subject abruptly arose. Li Cherie didn't answer. She couldn't answer. She was immersed in the silent zone, where to become motionless is to be elsewhere. "If you want this golden ball, I buy it. Do not worry of expense." Still, she didn't reply. Noticing that she was holding the Vaseline jar, transfixed by the bashful yet sensuous glow of its contents, and recalling that in America, ball was slangy euphemism for coitus, Abin began to wonder if golden ball didn't refer to some special kind of sexual intercourse in which he wasn't versed. Maybe it referred to sexual perfection, the ultimate ball, and maybe he had failed to provide it. And maybe Vaseline was supposed to help. Smitten for the first time in his life with pangs of self-doubt, he asked sulkily, "This golden ball, is it something you have had with the Woodpecker man?" Abin had never mentioned the Woodpecker before, and it was jolting enough to cause Li Cherie to come back from her reverie Although the phrase come back is misleading because in the realm of meditative daydream, the only way to go there is paradoxically to totally be here. Not exactly, she stammered. She returned the Vaseline to the bedside table, withdrawing her gaze from the sea light of its luminous goo. He said something to me once. I only just now understood what he meant. Accepting her explanation in all of its inadequacy, Fizzle permitted the subject to be changed to limestone. The next morning, however, he fired messages to customs officials at every point of entry in the Arab world, demanding that any traveler bearing a passport in the name of Bernard Mickey Wrangle be turned away, forcefully, if necessary. Chapter 83. Less than a month later, believe it or not, a man bearing just such a passport stepped off a plane in Algiers. When informed that he could not enter Algeria, he put up a fight and was taken into custody. Abin Fizzle was notified. Fizzle sent the Algerian police commissioner a case of cognac, a tub of caviar, and a pearl-handled riding crop that had once belonged to King Farouk. Wrangle is a dangerous international thug with Zionist affiliations, cabled Fizzle. He should be detained in maximum security, indefinitely, which most suits your taste in motor cars, Commissioner, the American Lincoln Continental or the German Mercedes-Benz. Fizzle then proceeded to add 100 workmen to the crew at the pyramid. Work was to continue around the clock until the limestone facing was on and the inner chambers met the Princess Lee Cherie specifications. Fizzle also ordered the palace staff to speed up preparations for the wedding. Chapter 84. You would think that an electric typewriter would know better than to bite the hand that pays the light bill. Yet the Remington SL3, in its wanton dedication to humdrum technological practicality, persists in obstructing attempts at old-fashioned literary genius. You would think that a woman, obsessed with building a full-size pyramid in the last quarter of the 20th century, would know better than to cross the one man who could make it possible. Yet Lee Cherie had refused Abin's embrace when speaking to him sharply, and was speaking to him sharply. Why the hell am I being guarded? She demanded. Why do I trip over those two lummoxes every time I turn around? Lee Cherie's enthusiasm for sex simultaneously delighted and frightened Abin Fizzle. Months before, he had secretly assigned a eunuch to keep watch on her, assuring that her passions were not so rudderless as to allow her to drift into another's arms. She was, after all, left alone a great deal, and he was uncertain if the 2 services a week were sufficient to cool her racy motor. Upon learning that a Bernard Mickey Wrangle had been apprehended in Algiers, Abin had doubled the guard. It became obvious to Lee Cherie that the pair was camping outside her door. Those men of which you call dumb oxes are trusted by me. They are to spy on me. No, he shook his head forcefully. They are to protect you. From what? From the bad men. You could be kidnapped. Men that your television call terrorists do such things. Ways of Middle East are not familiar to you. That should have calmed her. But she was aware that abductions and skyjackings were fairly common political tactics in that part of the globe. But red hair is slow to lay back once it's got its dandruff up, and her bitchy mood required further opportunity to express itself. I'm familiar enough with Middle Eastern customs to know that Muslims don't eat or make love on Saturdays. Why do you always visit me on a holy day? A day you don't dare be seen in a disco, right? Your countrymen refuse to work in the pyramid on Saturdays. You have to hire Greeks. I'll bet they don't know how you spend your holy day. No meat on Saturday, Abin, right? No meat on Saturday. The lids drooped like paper wrappers over his chocolate drop eyes. A guilty tick began to palpitate in the left corner of his mouth. Perhaps I am too long in America, he said softly. Perhaps I am too much confused Mecca with between your thighs. Lee Cherie had to laugh. He said thighs. Lee Cherie had to laugh. Thighs, Abin. She opened her negligee and patted herself. These are called thighs. His eyes watered. His lower lip quivered like a snail that had just learned of the meaning of escargot. Sorry now, she set about to kiss the quivers and ticks and tears away. Soon the forgotten guards were nudging one another and grinning at the sacrilegious yet not unholy noises escaping from the flat.